This is that second problem. If you have not had a chance to solve this on your own, pause this video, make sure you can find 15% of 42 on your own, and then start the video again, make sure you get the right answer. Okay, so 15% of 42, we talked about this before. This is a percent problem. Percents are really a handy way to look at parts of numbers, but they're kind of hard to do math with, right? So we talked already about turning this into one of two different numbers, okay? One way to do that is to make it into a fraction, okay? This is 15%, so it's 15 per cent, right? And cent, 100 years in a century, 100 cents in a dollar. Do you notice how I keep saying that? So I hope it sticks in your brain. Or we can turn this into a decimal, okay? 15 divided by 100 gives us 0.15. Or if you want to do this the short way, remember we can move our decimal point 2 spots from 15.0, move it over, we get 0.15, okay? These two numbers are a lot easier to do our math with than this weird 15% number that we started with, okay? That, we can come over here and we can either do with our fraction 15 over 100 times 42, or do 0.15 times 42, and we're gonna get the same answer either way. Let me grab my calculator again. If I do 0.15 times 42, 6.3, okay? Real quick, let's double check and make sure that that makes sense. 15% is less than 50%. It's less than 25%. So we would expect a number to be less than 10 here, okay? So this number does make sense as our answer. Again, if you want to do this with the fractions, that's great too. 15 over 100 times 42. We need to make this into a fraction so we can do our multiplication. 15 times 42 is going to be, let's see, 630. And then times 1 is 100, okay? Divide 630 divided by 100, I'm going to get 6.3 that way as well. Okay, on the next couple slides, on Delta Math today, some of these problems are asking you for your answer to the nearest hundredth. And remember, this decimal is written out right now to the nearest tenth. So on the Delta Math assignment at the end of class today, you might want to enter to the nearest tenth, which would give you one more number. Okay. All right, so one other quick thing I wanted to talk about, the numbers don't always look this easy, okay? And some of the ones on Delta Math that are gonna pop up might look like this, okay? And these ones are a little trickier. The math is about the same, so if you understood the last ones, these ones shouldn't be too complicated. It's just kind of weird to think about, right? 152% is more than one whole thing, right? It's like the whole thing, 100% of it, plus another 52%. So this number is going to end up being bigger by about a half than what we started with, right? So when I'm doing that thinking before I start my problem, when I look at this, I'm going to say, okay, so I'm going to start with 100% of this, which is 11, and then I'm adding another half. The number I'm expecting here should be about 16, right? It's a full 11 plus half of another 11. Right? So it should be like 16 or 17. Okay, and then down here, we'll talk about these ones in a second, but this is 0.79%. Okay, so if I take 0.79 and I multiply it by 8, that's going to give me the wrong number because this is 0.79 100. Okay, and then when I divide that, that's going to basically move my decimal point 2 spots over. My decimal version of this is actually 0. And I've got 1, 2 zeros here, 7, 9, right? So my math's going to be a little trickier when I start dealing with decimal percentages, right? These ones are a little funky. Okay, so just keep that in mind if any of these problems pop up. Up here, I can do the same thing, right? I can break this into a fraction, 152 over 100. Right? This is weird because it's an improper fraction. My number on top, my numerator, is bigger than the denominator. But if you think back to skill 2, we've worked with numbers that look like this before. This isn't a problem, right? I can still multiply by that. Okay. Also, I can split this into a decimal, 152 divided by 100, or just move your decimal over 2 spots, 1.52. That's going to make that number jump up to look like the number that we already expect. Okay, so these numbers look confusing. These problems look like ones that might give you a hard time, but if you follow the same steps that we already talked about, you should be in good shape. Okay, that's about all that I've got. This is the last video for today. There is, after this slide, there is a round of pick'em. I would like you to pick one problem, solve it using either fractions or decimals. Make sure you get the right answer on the next slide, and then you can go ahead and jump over to Delta Math, get a little bit of practice done, and show me that you understand the kind of lesson one on these percents. Like I said at the beginning, these problems get harder because I can move these words around to ask you to find all sorts of different things. So we're starting slow, and we're going to be kind of ramping up with our percent work this week and next week. All right, y'all. Welcome back to math class. Good to have y'all, and I will check in with you again tomorrow. All right, bye.